Hello, this is a tutorial on how to use iMovie. iMovie's gone through a lot of changes in the recent past. iMovie used to have a different format, but the iMovie that you're looking at right now is called iMovie Mavericks. So I want to talk you through this and show you how you can use iMovie Mavericks in order to create an iMovie project. So when you open up iMovie, this is what you end up seeing. I want to walk you through first what iMovie looks like and the different parts to iMovie. So first off, what's important to iMovie that you want to check out is up here on the left-hand side. Over here on the left-hand side is sort of like your toolbar for iMovie. It includes all the major things you're going to be using as you go through creating an iMovie project. So for example, up here at the top left is your iMovie library. And the iMovie library is going to be the place where you're going to see where your projects are stored at, and you can get to them very quickly that way. And I'll show you how the new one that we're going to create in just a moment is going to pop up there. Down at the bottom of the left-hand side is the content library, and you're going to notice there are a whole bunch of things down here that are very helpful for you. For example, there's transitions. Transitions is something you can use as you go from slide to slide in order to create a clear flow of how that's going to work between one slide to the next. The next thing right below that is titles. This is where you're going to be able to create a title page. It's going to allow you multiple different options on how to create that title page. Below that is maps and backgrounds. This one you're probably not going to use a whole lot. Maps and backgrounds, they do give you some different types of slides that you could bring in, showing where something's located, and the map, and so forth. The other big one, though, is going to be iTunes. This is where you can bring in music from your iTunes library and try and make your overall project just sound a lot better by having a soundtrack that's going on while you're talking on it. Next up is sound effects. iTunes is trying to compete with other types of software, and so they've included on Mavericks, this wasn't there in the past, they've included an entire list of possible sound effects that you could drag into your presentation, and I'll show you that in just a little bit. Last up is GarageBand. GarageBand is also similar to music, where you actually can create music and put it in. To be quite honest, I really haven't played around with that all that much. If you're familiar with GarageBand software, you might be able to bring in some things that I'm just not aware of. So that's on the left-hand side. Up at the top of the middle page right here is import media. This is where you can actually import in different things that you would like to be able to use and then drag it down to our area down below that we're going to be using that I'll talk about in just a second. The next big area that I do want to talk about is up here at the top right-hand side. That top right-hand side is going to be the place where we're going to be able to edit all of our pictures and video that we put in, and there's an entire toolbar up at the top to do that. I'll talk about that in just a few minutes. Down at the bottom part of the project is going to be the place where we can drag in our pictures and our video, and then from there we're going to go ahead and edit things. So anyways, that's just a walkthrough on the different elements of Maverick. However, how do we actually create a project? So let's do that right now. So I know you're going to be shocked by this, but I am going to create a project about Star Wars. I know, shocker here for me to do that, correct? So in order to do a project on Star Wars, what I've done is I've gone to Google Images, and I have created for myself a folder on my desktop. And I'll show you where that's at right now. There it is. I created a folder, and inside of that folder, I created a number of pictures that I want to use for my project on Star Wars. What I would suggest is that you create a script first for your project, then go and find images, put it into a folder like this on your desktop, and then you'll be able to drag things in very quickly. Okay, but we do want to go ahead and create a project for ourselves. So here's how you do that. You can either go up here to create, or you can go to File and create new movie. So either way works out fine. We're going to go ahead and we're going to press the Create button and go down to Movie. And that's going to bring up this page for us. So you're going to notice that there are a whole bunch of templates they give to you to create a project. You're welcome to use any of these. You can do this, and then you can kind of have that as your background as you move pictures and images in and out. I generally tend not to like to use this only because it really restricts me into their type of context. For example, if I wanted to use the bright one right here, okay, this would kind of restrict me down to a type of context that really is not going to work for a lot of the projects I want to use. So I generally tend to use no theme. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and then I'm going to title my project. So this is going to be Star Wars. Now you'll notice when I do this, Star Wars comes up here up at the top. Star Wars is also going to eventually be over here on the left-hand side for me to be able to use that. So let's go ahead and start creating my Star Wars project. In order to do that, I could either import media using the arrow here, or I can just go ahead and I can open up my folder and start to drag in pictures. So I'm going to do that. I'm just going to drag in a few of these pictures that I have for myself that I want to have in my project. And then close up that folder. So now I have the pictures I want to have inside. Pretty easy kind of stuff in order to drag this in. But this is pretty boring. We obviously don't want to keep these pictures the way that they are. We want to start editing them. So if I were to play this right now, here's what my project is going to end up looking like. You can see it up on the top right-hand side. The pictures are coming in and out, and that looks kind of good, but overall this is kind of boring, and we don't want to keep it this way. So how do we go ahead and edit this in a way that's going to make it more interesting? So in order to edit, we want to come up to this top right-hand side and use the toolbar that's up here in order to do that. And there are a few different buttons that are really important that I want to point out as far as editing goes. One is this I button at the end. The I button is going to allow you to change up the time on the different pictures that you're using. So for example, this first picture, I want to be rather long because I have a lot of information I want to give as like background to Star Wars. So I can actually come up here and I can change that time, and I'm going to change it to 20 seconds and go ahead and enter that in. And you're going to notice that's going to change the size of that picture now down here below. But let's say this next one I really want to give a brief description of. I don't want to go too far into depth. I can go up here, and instead of making that 20 seconds, I can make it maybe like 10 seconds. And that's going to allow me to make it a little bit longer, but not as long as the first one. And I can go through and I can edit every single one of these pictures, okay, to be the time that I think is going to be best for my script. Now, once I'm done with that, I still think, time's fine, but I want these pictures to be able to move in and out in a way that's going to make them interesting. So I click on the picture down below, and then I go up to this button right here. And you'll notice what happens is that we have this start box and end box. Now this is based off of what's called the Ken Burns effect. I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard of Ken Burns. Ken Burns is the famous documentarian, especially when it comes to the Civil War. He came up with this really cool effect where he would have pictures move in and out in order to tell a story. So let's say on this first picture that I want the focus to start with Anakin, because he's really who's important in this story. And so I want it to start off with Anakin, but I want it to end showing all of the Jedi. So I go ahead and I move the boxes so that the start button is on Anakin. It ends off here with all the Jedi. And then I go over to the check mark over here and I click check. So what does this do to our picture? So you'll notice that now the picture is starting off with Anakin, and then it is going to move out, and eventually by the end of this, we are going to see all of the Jedi in the picture. So this is the Ken Burns effect. It makes things a lot more interesting. So the next step is how to do a voice recording over the pictures that you've chosen. So in order to do that, what you're going to do is use the letter V. Now you notice what just happened there. When I press V, that microphone that you saw disappeared. So let's press V again, and you'll notice the microphone pops up. Make sure to press on the picture down below, then press V, and when you do that, you go ahead and you are going to click on the microphone itself. And then you can go ahead and record over your picture, and this is going to allow you to create some type of narration. Now, if we go back and we're going to go ahead and play that so you guys can actually hear what I just said. And then you can go ahead and record over your picture. And this is going to allow you to create some type of narration. So notice carefully that what you're able to do here is just using that V, then clicking on the microphone. You'll get a warning, a 3-second countdown. Then you go ahead and you can talk over your video. Now let's say you get to the end of your video and you want to shorten it or lengthen it. You can actually go down to the video over here, and you can click it so that it will either fade in and fade out, do that, or you can actually even move it in and out, and you can shorten or lengthen what you said on it. So that's the way that we narrate over it. That's how we're going to do narration over different clips. But I want to make this a little bit more of an interesting project. I want to provide an overall title slide that's going to introduce my topic. So how would I do something like that? Down here on the bottom left, there is a place for title slides, and when you click on that, you're going to see all these possibilities pop up at the top. In fact, there's one that looks a heck of a lot like the Star Wars one called Far, Far and Away. And so what you do is that you just go ahead and click on this, drag it down, and that can go right in the front. And you can go ahead and you can edit this. So if I don't want this to be so long, I can go ahead and edit it by dragging it over and making it less time. Or I can do what I did before. I can go up here and go ahead and change the time through that eye icon that's up at the top. Another option that I have to do is to actually type on the slide itself in order to create the information that I want. So for example, I've created now this Far, Far and Away slide that looks a lot like the beginning of Star Wars. I can now go up to the T button up here, and that brings up for me the ability now to type here. So let's say I want to do a Star Wars title slide that's going to talk about Star Wars, the first adventure in space. Once I have done that now, I've created for myself that title slide that is going to work for me. So when I go back to the beginning of this and I play it, I get the title slide that I want off of what I have created. Next up though, I really don't like how in between the title slide and this first slide that it's kind of choppy. I mean, I'll demonstrate how it kind of like works. So once I get past this, I go straight into what we had there. That seems to me lacking in transitions. So I want to provide some kind of transition in between the two slides. In order to do that, I go to the bottom left-hand side. I go to transitions, and I want to have some type of fading in that's going to help me. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do a fade in. I want to use a particular one, so there's a whole bunch of possibilities I can use here. I'm going to go and do a fade to black. So I'm going to go ahead and take that, drag it down, and put that in between. You'll notice that sometimes when you do the transitions, some of the other things will move. That's not really a hard thing to fix. All you have to do then is move things back to the place that they need to be in. And here's why this is really helpful. And then you can go ahead. So notice that that allowed me to have a clear transition to move from one slide to the next. So now I have video, I have pictures that are moving, I have a narration to the picture, I have a title slide, I have a transition. This is still kind of boring. I want something that's going to make this more interesting, and a good way to do that is through music. So the way that I'm going to do that is go to my iTunes library, which down is at the left-hand side. And for me, I actually have a particular soundtrack that's going to work out really well that goes with Star Wars, and that is from the Star Wars soundtrack itself, which is the Imperial March. All I have to do is go to iTunes, find the song that I want, and then drag that down below. And now I have the Imperial March. So I can actually now move that around to the start, and here's how it ends up sounding because of it. And then you can go ahead and record. And notice too that the way sound works is you can actually use the sound in such a way to make sure the music of the sound is in the background and is not going to be overpowering the narration of the sound that you're providing. Now the Imperial March goes on for a really long time, and I don't want it to be this long. So all I have to do is click on it, go up to the I button, and then I can actually shorten it. So let's say I want to have this be for 30 seconds. I go ahead and I can change it just like I do with anything else, and that's going to change the amount of time that we're going to provide for the music. Okay, cool. So now we have a title slide, we have transition, we have pictures, and we have music, and we have narration. The next thing we want to do is to provide a video for our slide. So how do we take video and put it into the slide? And that's going to require a little bit more of a process that we're going to go over right now. So I know the next thing you might be wondering is how you can take video clips and convert them so we can use them inside of iMovie. So here's how I would suggest that you do this. There's a site, and it's called clipconverter.cc. So let's go ahead and put that in. So clipconverter.cc. mavericks.cc. When you get to this site, it's going to look like this. Now, there might be some extra steps you're going to have to take when you first get to the site. I had to actually download the software into the computer. I've already done that. So I've gone ahead and I've gone to YouTube, but let me show you where I went so you can just kind of see the whole process. So when I went to YouTube, I wanted to look up a Star Wars scene. And I decided I was going to choose something from Family Guy, so I thought that would be a good thing to kind of add in here. So I go ahead and I go to the Family Guy clip that I want to use. And I'm going to take the URL, I'm going to go back to Clip Converter, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to paste it into where it says here, Media URL to download. Now what I'm going to do is press Continue. That allows the site to check and make sure that the YouTube URL that I have chosen isn't something that's somehow copyrighted or restricted. Once I've done that, I now need to choose a conversion format. So you can either choose MP4 or MOV. Those are the two that I would suggest that are probably the best to use. I'm going to choose MOV. Then I go down to the bottom here and I press Start. And that is going to allow me to do the conversion. Now you're going to notice that when this happens, the computer is going to go through sort of like an overall conversion process that's going to convert the media. When this is all done, you're now going to be able to download this particular video onto your hard drive or your desktop. So I just go ahead and I'm going to save it then to my desktop. I've already done this, so I'm not going to do it again, but I just wanted to show you what the process looks like. So once we've finished doing our entire video, we now need to export this video. The way you're going to export the video is this. Up at the top of our page is this share button. When you click on it, there are a whole variety of different ways you can share this out. You can share it out through email, you can share it to your iTunes, you can share it to YouTube, you can share it out as a file, and so forth. The way I usually do this is I go down to File, I click on that, then I'll go ahead and press Next, and then I save this to my desktop. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save my Star Wars video here to my desktop. And as I do that, you'll notice up on the top right-hand side, there's a circle here that has activity, which means that it's a blue circle and it is now saving this to my desktop. Once that's all done, I'm going to then have that saved to my desktop, and then I can go ahead and I can upload that to YouTube, which is the next step that you're going to do, and I'll show you that in just a moment. So once I've shared out my iMovie to my desktop, I now want to make sure that I can upload this up to YouTube so I can be able to use the URL in order to post wherever I want to post it to. So the way you do that is really simple. You can set up a YouTube account, you can set up your own channel, and then once you do that, you just go up here to this button, Upload. Go ahead and click on that. That will take you directly over to here where you can now go over to select files to upload. Open up on your desktop wherever you stored that project. So I stored the project right here. And I go ahead and I open that up, and now YouTube is going to go ahead and is going to upload and then publish my particular project. So it's going to start off by uploading it. After that, it processes it, and that takes a little bit of time. Once it processes it, you'll be able to go over to the Publish button, which is up here up on the right, and that is going to create for you a URL. Once you have that URL, you're going to be able to use that URL to be able to post to Canvas or to wherever else we're having you post that to. So this finishes up the project as far as how you're going to do that, and then how you will eventually be able to post and publish it. Hopefully this answers most of your questions. There is one last thing though that I want to talk to you about, and I'm going to talk to you about it in just a second, about how to look at the process of creating your overall iMovie. So here's the process that I would suggest you use in order to create an iMovie. First, start off by making a script. This will allow you to have an overview of where you're going for this process. It also allows you to go now to Google Images and YouTube and find pictures and video. Once you've done that, put those into your project and then begin the narration of the pictures and video. Finally, you can finish with editing the project. If you follow these steps in this order, you'll make your project much more manageable.